Good evening, Miss, and to anyone that is watching. My name is Glenn, and this will be my data management video assignment 1 at the 17th of January 2021. So, in this particular video assignment, it is listed at the instruction or at the question sheet is that choose one of the following probability experiment and conduct trials to gather experimental data. That is to either use dices and try to count the probability for rolling one even and one odd, or to flip three coins and try to count the probability of getting exactly two hits with each roll. I chose the second one. Now, uh, each data for the experiment I have written it all down by myself, and most of the website I will also include it later on. But as for now, we could just focus on the PowerPoint presentation, like so. So, the hypothesis for the experiment is that the theoretical probability for getting exactly two hits in a three coin flip is going to be around 38%, or basically, in putting it into fraction, will be 3 over 8. The workings I have done on the side includes also a tree diagram that shows on how the process or how the probability is being split throughout the three coin being flipped. Now the experimental probability will also going to be approaching the theoretical probability, but it won't be exact in value. So my hypothesis is that, or my speculation, is that the experimental probability will be close to the value of the theoretical probability, but it won't exactly be the exact value that I have noted down in front of you. But I know for a fact that its range will probably be above 35%. Now, it is asked from the question that is given to us to conduct your trials of record or your data using spreadsheet software and conduct the experiment 100 times. I have done so using this, as you can see, and each of these I have repeatedly done for 100 times. Now keep in mind for this because this will become relevant really soon. It is also stated that we are supposed to put the data into a scattered like graph as I shown you right now. Now this graph signifies on how the probability or the experimental probability is displayed throughout the entire 100 trials. And the orange line, as you can see in front of you, is the theoretical probability, and that will be around 38. I will also include the Excel spreadsheet in the submission later on. First things first, we can go on to answer, or we can go on to answer question 5. Now, at question 5, there is how does your graph compare to the theoretical probability that you've calculated? So, the experimental probability could be calculated by the numbers of success divided by the numbers of trials. From the experimental above that we have, or from the experimental probability experiment that I have done before, I have counted that we have 36 number of success over 100 trials. So that would give us around the numbers of 36%. This does also prove my hypothesis as in that the final trial or the final probability of the experimental trial doesn't exactly come this isn't exactly the value of the theoretical probability that is 38%, but it is close and it is also in the expected range of the probability that is above 35%. Now, another thing is that what is happening to the experimental probability of event A as the total number of trials increase. So, as the numbers of trials increase, the experimental probability also approaches the theoretical probability. That means the more tests we run, the closer the experimental probability is to the theoretical probability that we pulled out at the first slide. Now, around the 84th trial is when the experimental probability is approaching the theoretical probability. In other words, around the 84th try is when the experimental probability is closing onto the theoretical probability. Now, the last question will be going like is data. Sorry, mate. Sorry about that. Uh, the last one is to ask if you were to use three dice instead of two or four coins instead of three, how would this experiment change? Alright, so for this one, it would go something like this. With the addition of another coin, the previous total probability will be multiplied by half or zero point 0.5, giving us a probability of 1 over 6 for each unit's probability, as seen as with the new tree diagram beside you. Though the denominator has changed accordingly, the theoretical probability of getting exactly two hits hasn't changed. So, the probability of getting exactly two hits and four coins flip will still be around 38%. Now, the conclusion is that the theoretical probability is an expected probability, or what the probability would and could look like. And the experimental probability is a true value of a probability, in which the more trials you run, the closer it is to the theoretical probability or to the true value that it will help. This does conclude my first video assignment for data management in the 17th of January 2021. Thank you for listening and for, forgive me if there's any mistake that I have done throughout this entire process.